ado, we would be starting with the first session, which is going to be a conversation that will be driven by Dr. Uwajumogu. She's going to be talking to us about the challenges and opportunities for inclusive growth in Nigeria. But before I call her, I'm just going to read a bio briefly and to introduce her to the audience. So Dr. Nkechiere Uwajumogu is a university lecturer, and she has been a lecturer for over 13 years and currently teaches at the Department of Economics and Development Studies, Alex Ekwueme Federal University at Ndufu Alike Ikwo at Ebonyi State. She was awarded the United Nations University Institute for Natural Resources in Africa home-based scholar program with UNI, DS, and Emia Karonye, CF, on the project titled Resource Efficiency and Productivity of Green Micro, Small and Medium Scale in rural Nigeria. She is also a recipient of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund 2019 Conference Attendance Award in 2019. Her research interests are in development economics, poverty issues, gender issues, entrepreneurship, and their intersections with macroeconomic issues such as trade, investment, and quality of institutions. As mentioned earlier, she will be talking to us today about some of the challenges and opportunities for inclusive growth in Nigeria. And I believe she is well positioned to actually take us on that session. So I would like to say welcome, Dr. Uwajumogu, and please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Let me get my slide. Okay. I'm coming. Okay. Good day, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. It's an honor to have you right here with us. This afternoon, I'm going to share with us the challenges and opportunities for inclusive growth in Nigeria as we renew our economy for 2030. And you may ask, why renewal? Why do we need to renew our economy? That means it is a renewal, it is a restoration of Nigeria's economy, because Nigeria once the pride of Africa with huge potentials, willing and able to lead the African continent to great prosperity. So that if we measure that along GDP growth line, you see that Nigeria's great potential, starting from the 1960s after the independence, you see us, so that between 1960 and 1970, their average GDP growth rate was about, GDP per capita growth rate was about 3.18%. So Nigeria, looking at the graph, you see that we were growing. Even the economic growth, even in between 2000s, it was okay, but sadly, from 2015 to date, our GDP per capita growth rate has been averaging minus 1.13%. So that it is very, very important that Africa's pride must grow. Then another question you may want to ask is why 2030? Now, what is going to happen in 2030 is that in 2030, the Sustainable Development Goal will end. And at the heart of Sustainable Development Goal is inclusive growth as well as sustainable growth. So Nigeria has also domesticated the Sustainable Development Goal in order to put in the development challenges facing the nation. Another reason for that 2030, the interest in 2030, sorry, I don't know, I'm mixing it up, in 2030 is that it will be 10 years after the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And according to a report by McKinsey, Nigeria has a potential to achieve 7.1% annual GDP growth rate. So that by 2030, Nigeria will be among the first 10 economies in the world. So that everything and anything that must be done to to aid Nigeria's renewal and achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal must and should be done. Then let's a little bit conceptual literature. What do we mean by inclusive growth? Now, economic growth, no doubt, is very, very important, no doubt, but definitely it is not enough. So that inclusive growth, when we talk about inclusive growth, we want to look at the pattern and pace of growth. That is quite important too. Now, in inclusive growth, some scholars will say that it is pro-poor growth, but that it is beyond pro-poor growth. The poor wants to participate in the growth process. The poor hates handouts. The poor hates charity. The poor want to be an active participant in the growth process. So that inclusive growth is totally not the same thing as pro-poor growth. So that inclusive growth focuses on the sources of growth, the constraints to growth, which we're going to talk about now, as well as in poverty reduction. So for us to achieve inclusive growth, three pillars are very important according to the Asian Development Bank. Three pillars. That is growth and expansion of economic opportunity. You must give the people the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to expand economic activities, and that is chiefly job creation. You must have social inclusion to ensure equal access to economic opportunity. One of the reasons why people are poor is because they do not have access to productive resources. And then the last pillar is social safety net. You need to help the vulnerable. Now, to achieve these three pillars is helped by good governance and institutions. That is from African Development Bank. And as I mentioned earlier on, the process of growth is important, as well as the outcome. Now, also very, very important is participation and benefit sharing. So we see evidence that there is non-inclusive growth in Nigeria. We see that in terms of poverty level. We see that in terms of unemployment. Nigeria, sadly for me to say, is the poverty capital of the whole world. So you see that in high inequality, that both income inequality and gender inequality. These are evidence that support that Nigeria is really, the growth rate in Nigeria is not inclusive enough. And it portends great danger to sustainable growth if the majority of the people are not included in the growth process. So these are evidence to show that there is a. Now let's talk about the causes of inclusive growth. Number one cause of inclusive growth is the market system. You know why? Today's economic paradigm focuses on the market system, privatization, forces of demand and supply. That is so nice. But the market system rewards people that have access to these resources. And when you do not have access to these resources, then you will not be an active participant of the market. So now the market system, no doubt, is effective. However, developing countries like Nigeria do not have the necessary infrastructure to carry the market system, and therefore you have market failure. It is very prevalent if the market is even in existence. And most often what you usually have is absence of these markets. This is a major cause of inequality in Nigeria. Now, other causes include poor human capital development. We have the large number, but very skilled and productive human capital, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. These are lacking. Then the rate of population growth is outstripping economic growth, and classical economists have that is why economics is called a dismal science, because if your rate of population, the number of mouths you have to feed, is more than the food available in the house, you have people, it now becomes a survival of the fittest. The weak and the vulnerable, like women and girls and the elderly, will be out of the participating in the economy. Now, the activities of climate change is also important, and this has led into, is one of the causes of the frequency in the herders and farmers conflict in Nigeria. And another cause is there is kind of a lack of social cohesion in Nigeria. People don't trust government. We don't trust our government enough, so that even when they are telling us what to do, because the government have not really led up to its expectations and what we expect the government to do, we find it difficult to trust them and obey their policies. And this has led to a lot of internal conflicts, like in the southern part of Nigeria, they hardly trust anything Buhari administration is saying, no doubt about that, because they don't feel responsible, they do not feel part of the government. Another worrisome, more important cause of inequality in Nigeria is the poorly developed infrastructure in Nigeria. There's no electricity, no good roads, and so on. So the no railway services, these are very, very important for inclusive growth. Then there is a structural change that is taking place now that if we do not key into, we may have a problem, and that is for the digital economy. The digital economy is coming and is more pronounced in this COVID-19 era. We have more webinars, more virtual conferences, even more schools online. But it is causing more and more people to be excluded from the production process. Then other problems like poor governance, which we talk about, Nigerians have made efforts to include people in the growth process, but the success of these policies are still very much in doubt. Now, what are the opportunities? It is not really only about stories of woes and glooms. There are good things going on in Nigeria. Number one, we have large, vibrant, resilient, and young and growing population. It has its negative consequences though, but I'm going to look at the positive consequences of this. Now, the European countries, they are now having, their population is now aging, but for Nigeria, we have these young enterprising young people in Nigeria. I don't think there is any country in the world that you wouldn't see a good Nigerian playing his or her part there. So that's one thing going for us, especially post COVID-19. Now we have a large market size. We have large market size in Nigeria. Which can potentially, we can use it as a leverage to add because the demand side. Now Nigeria is strategically positioned in Africa. Where Nigeria is positioned, we are not landlocked. We have we can access sea. African countries can access us, so it's a good thing for us. Then there is the massive digital revolution going on, and internet penetration is a plus for us, but maybe sometime later we'll come back to some barriers that will cause exclusive growth because of the massive digital revolution that is going on. Now, we also, just like I mentioned before, we have highly entrepreneurial youths, Nigerians, in the entertainment industry, in the fashion industry. We've not even explored tourism in Nigeria, probably because of lack of infrastructure. These are the good things going on for us. Then the large informal sector is a plus, as well as a minus. It is a plus in the sense that if we bring in all these people in the informal sector, we can increase our GDP. So, and then the natural resource endowment that everybody knows and talks about in Nigeria. So, the way forward, let's go back to the basic, rural-based economic growth. Let's look at our agriculture, but not the low productivity agriculture that we are used to do. We need to look at high-tech agriculture. We need to take our agriculture, especially the storage, the processing, the packaging, to a higher level. We need to have massive infrastructural development, electricity, good road. We need that. We need connectivity, internet connectivity. We need to create a social contract with Nigerians. That's the government and the government should create a social contract between us, the citizens and government. Let us have a sense of belonging in Nigeria. It will help, it will even help government to, when people believe them, when people trust them, they can pay their taxes and all their financial obligations. Then we talked about economic diversification in terms of going into tourism, investing in tourism, fashion, entertainment, even trade. Nigerians are made of traders. So the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will be massive for Nigeria if we put all these things into focus. Then there should also be financial inclusion as well as digital inclusion. We're going to talk about that much later. And lastly, for this session, we need effective political leadership. We need good governance. We need good institutions and not, we need strong institutions and not strong people. These are the things that we need to include everybody in the growth process. Thank you. I hope I didn't extend my time.
No, you worked well within time. Thank you so much, Doctor. And I would also I know we've had more people joining. Thank you so much and welcome for joining us. I would just like to, a few house rules. Please let's all have our mics on mute so that we can all hear the panelists talk and we have less distractions. And then secondly, if you have any questions or comments, you can please use the chat box. So Doctor, I have just one question for you. And you spoke about financial inclusion. So my question right now is, what role do you think financial institutions have to play to actually drive financial inclusion in Nigeria? So there are a lot of activities going on right now with the digital apps we're having and even the phone banking measures that are in place. But how else do you think financial institutions can intensify efforts to actually get to the grassroots level and encourage them to be a part, of the financial system in the country?
Okay. Most of these things, we'll talk about them in towns. You hear me? You can hear me? Okay.
Yes,
we talk about them in towns. We need to get to the rural areas where the bulk of Nigerians live. We need massive financial literacy campaign. There should be a massive financial literacy campaign. We also need, because the problem of financial inclusion is in terms of access and affordability. But let me talk about access. How many bank branches are in the rural area? There are few when we compare them to the urban areas. So we need these assets. They need these access. They need the education, and then we need to streamline these transactions because, for example, you may have your bank's ATM card, but you may not be able to use it in another bank. So we need to streamline this. But most importantly, for the people in the informal sector, we need the financial literacy campaign to tell them the benefits of being financially included. Moreover, when we talk about financial inclusion, we only talk about savings. We've not really scratched on credit, making credit available to the poor, making credit, soft credit available to the poor, productive people. So we need to do all these things and then gain people's trust, because sometimes even with our mobile phones that you can do so many things, people don't know, they do not have the skills to drive these things. So when we talk about this, we also look at awareness creation, because when we talk about we talk about the savings and the credits, we also need to talk about insurance. Insurance and business is quite low in Nigeria. We also need to talk about mutual fund, so that we see that people talk, when we talk about savings, we only focused on that aspect, but there are other financial aspects that people should know about. These are quite important. Then we also need to create enabling environment for banks. Banks fund most of their infrastructure, and that makes cost of borrowing to be high. They fund their electricity, they fund their water, they fund their security, so that the cost of banking operation becomes very high, that the money that could have spent, the money that could have been channeled into credit to poor people, are now spent in provision of infrastructure. These things are important. Then, okay, well, then there is also the importance of stabilizing the economy in terms of inflation, because people don't save when they know that the value of their savings in the next 2-3 years will be diminished. So they will rather buy lands or gold or things like that. So if we have macroeconomic stability, then make sure that your saving, the value of your savings in the next 5-10 years is still intact or even higher. It will encourage people to go into the banking system. Thank you very much. I will answer.